Hello. So I actually wasn't going to make a video at all today because, I mean, just because I'm a mess. But I felt like it was fitting. I've been wanting to make a video. I just didn't know how to start it or what to say, so I'm just gonna roll off the shoulder, roll off the cuff. I don't know. I'm gonna try to do this like a one take thing, but that's not really my style because I'm wordy and I like to backtrack a lot. But here we go. So 2023. Nope. See, I can't do a one take because I am me. But 2022 recap. Hard. The word that I would use to describe 2022 is just hard. Not bad. Not bad. Just hard. I really wanted to get my YouTube channel going and flowing and all those things, but I hit my wall and I hit my breaking point and I couldn't go on anymore and I couldn't do what I wanted with this space. And I didn't really know what direction I wanted to go in or anything like that, really. I kind of lost myself a little bit, especially at the beginning of the year. So I'm going to kind of try to take you through the year as best as I can and then go from there. So in January of 2022, I was pregnant with our twin daughters. I don't even know how pregnant I was at that time, but in that month we found out that baby B had growth restriction, uterine growth restriction, I think is what it's called. And the doctors were unkind, to say the least. They were very scare tactic-y, and when they told me about it at the very beginning, they basically said, be prepared to deliver any day. We might have to take them like tomorrow, is kind of what they led me to believe. And at this point, I don't even know. I want to say I was like 22 weeks pregnant, 23 weeks pregnant. They were like less than 2 pounds, I want to say. And I basically was like, absolutely not. This is not going to work. This is not going to happen. I cannot have this happen. So that we found that out like towards the end of January, and I had to wait an incredibly long time. It really was only like 2 weeks, but when you have that kind of fear inside of you of your children possibly not even surviving in your womb, 2 weeks is a very long time to get any solid answers. I had certain doctor's appointments and ultrasounds and all sorts of things, and I was never really told anything. Like, nobody could give me any kind of real information, I guess, until I had to demand a meeting with the high-risk doctor in my doctor's group and sit down in his office and really, like, I wanted him to lay it out for me and tell me what is going on, because it happened at a really weird time where my specific doctor was on vacation, and then right after that, like, there was a COVID outbreak or something, and like the doctor's office got real weird, and like, I don't know, it just felt like it was one thing after another at that point. So in February, finally, I got to sit down with the high-risk doctor and be like, what is going on? And basically, it was a wait-and-see game. If baby is growing, we will not take her out, obviously. But if baby stops growing or goes down in the growth chart, then we need to consider some other options. So then I started going to the doctor 3 days a week because ultrasound doesn't do certain things on certain days. Doctors are in and out on certain days. It never ended up falling in line with me. I had 2 stress tests a week, and an ultrasound every single week to check the umbilical flow to make sure she was getting the right nutrition and vitamins and all those things that she needed to grow. Also monitoring baby A to make sure that she wasn't growing too quickly, because if you have one baby that's way too big and one baby who's way too small, that's where it also gets a little scary. So we're also monitoring baby A, but the worry was on baby B. And so that took everything. Every ounce of everything from me. Physically, mentally, all of it. My fourth baby was a birth center, all natural, in the water, no medication. I had very little ultrasounds, very little any kind of intervention at all. So going from that to the twins going to the doctor 3 times a week to get all these tests was not what I wanted. Just blatantly not what I wanted. Obviously, I will do whatever I need to get my baby safely, but not what I wanted. And I was also suffering from a lot of other things, like I had prenatal depression, I had pelvic, I can't even remember what it's called, pelvic something or other. It basically feels like your pelvis is just like breaking in half. I also had and still have carpal, they say it's just carpal tunnel in my hands, but it's really terrible and it makes it hard to like open anything or even brush my kid's hair. It was worse, so really difficult to brush my kid's hair. And I was also on extreme rest with a 1-year-old. So hard. It was hard and it was draining, and I was not me. I did not feel like me. It was worse than survival mode. It was barely living at that point inside. I had a lot of help from my husband and my sisters, and my children were amazing, but nobody could fix inside. If you've ever gone through anything like that where you're suffering emotionally and internally or even physically, because it was a physical toll on my body to carry these babies, you might know exactly what I'm trying to say. Like, nobody could help me. I just had to get through it. And that's what I did. So February, that happened. March, my oldest daughter turned 12, and that was exciting and sad because she's getting to be a big kid. I honestly don't remember a whole lot about March other than all the doctor's appointments. Oh, the end of March, I had 1 ultrasound. So let me back up. My ultrasounds the baby B kept getting smaller on the growth scale. The very first time that they said that she had the growth restriction, she was, I believe, 9 percentile, and the cutoff is 10%. So she was like right under the growth restriction or whatever. And she kept getting smaller. The next one I want to say was 6, and the next one was 4%. At the smallest, she was 4%, which I know if other people have growth restriction, it can get way worse than that. You can be at 1%, you cannot be on the chart. However, for me, that was enough to be scary. Especially when baby A was not growth restricted at all. She was totally fine. And at this point, I was still hoping for a vaginal birth. And every time I just lost more and more hope in that at all. And then the last ultrasound I had in March, was a new tech, a new ultrasound tech, and she measured her at 13%, which means that she's no longer growth restricted. And that was at the very end of March. Yes. And they said, oh, she's not growth restricted anymore. You don't have to do any of this stuff anymore. So I went from extreme 3 times a week, extreme rest, super worried, on the fence of even being pregnant another day, to you're totally fine, you don't have to do anything. And I don't know about you, but that sounded stupid to me. One ultrasound tech with one ultrasound says that she's perfectly fine when all the other and this was within like 2 weeks. All the other ultrasound techs have measured her way smaller. That makes no sense. So even though I didn't want to do the 3 days a week and all that, I told them I'm not comfortable with that. I'm not going to just stop doing everything because of one ultrasound reading by one ultrasound tech. I would like another ultrasound to confirm that she's either not growth restricted or just continue what we're doing. So we continued what we were doing. That was at the very end of March. And within days of that ultrasound, I got the most intense migraine I've ever had in my whole life. I don't get headaches and migraines very often in general. I have had a few that were bad, but this was unbearably out of control. My legs and feet were super swollen. I kept losing feeling in my feet. My hands were getting worse and worse, losing feeling in my hands. My face was getting extremely swollen, and more than just like, oh, you're pregnant and you get a little swollen. No, like puffer fish. Bad swollen. I know a lot of this is about the twins coming, but that is where a lot of the hard starts. So, sorry. So I don't even remember where it was. So yes, hand swelling, face swelling, not feeling well at all, super bad migraine. All the doctors kept saying, oh, it's fine, it's okay, this is normal at the end of your pregnancy, you're holding twins, lots of hormones, blah, blah, blah. I requested a bunch of blood work that came back on the high end of normal, but normal, and kept happening. And I ended up, because of that, you aren't growth restricted anymore situation, and them telling me you're totally fine, I requested another meeting with the high-risk doctor because I wanted to go over this again. And so I had that meeting coming up on April 5th. April 4th, I had a stress test where my blood pressure was sky high for me. It wasn't like sky high for health in general, but I have typically pretty low blood pressure, and it was very, very high for myself. It was high, and because I have such a low blood pressure, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was super high for me. And my doctor made me go in to the hospital and get monitored for a few hours. And while I was there, I kind of had a mental breakdown because April 4th is our fourth daughter, Knightley's, birthday, and she turned 2. And I told my doctor, we cannot deliver today. We cannot deliver today. I don't want her to have to share her birthday on the same day as her twin sisters. That just feels very unfair. And she said, okay, we're not going to deliver them today. We got this. Like, my doctor specifically, the other doctors in our practice, no, don't like a nurse practitioner, nothing. Hope they don't see this. But her, she's awesome. She came in, she held my hand, she was like, you're good, like, we won't have this, you need to calm down, all these things. So I do that, calm down as much as I can, and kind of like my blood pressure gets under control and we're good, and they give me another prescription for medication for my migraine, which they had already given me something else before that never worked at all. April 5th, I go in to see the high risk doctor specifically to talk about baby B's growth restriction not being a problem anymore. And he looked over my chart. He looked at me and he goes, "How are you feeling?" And I was like, "Not good." And I just like lost it and told him about my hands and my feet and my head and all this. And he was so kind to me, and he was like listening and shaking his head. And he was like, "Okay, honey." He wasn't, not in like a patronizing way, like in a, like, he was genuinely worried about me. He was like, "I know that we wanted to carry these babies as far as we possibly could, but I think this might be it. I think this is as far as you can go." And he told me that I needed to walk over to the hospital and deliver the babies. So that's what we did. A couple hours later, I went over to the hospital, and because I went home and got my bags and my husband and all those things and arranged my children. And we went to the hospital, and my blood pressure the whole time was pretty high, and I was actually having a lot of contractions, which I had had contractions a lot throughout the last month and a half. Like, all day. They were not consistent or real. Some of them were really painful, but not really painful, all of them. So we're sitting in the hospital and having contractions. They're very painful at this point. They haven't given me anything. Very, very painful. I think more due to stress than anything that they were coming. And my husband and I were sitting there, and they at the hospital kept having emergency situations with other patients and kept pushing us back. And my blood pressure is super high and all these things. But eventually, around 9 o'clock, I don't actually remember these times. Around 9 o'clock, I had a C-section. And on April 5th, 2022, baby A, Ames Covey Porche, was born around 9-ish o'clock. I'm not very good at this. And then 2 minutes later, Quinn Avis Porche was born, and they were both beautiful and tiny and just the best. They did have to go to NICU. Ames came out of NICU within a few hours and got to be with me. And Quinn, Quinn had to stay in NICU, and I did not get to see her for a long time, because I had, so we ended up delivering because they said that I had, preeclampsia, and after the preeclampsia, I had to be on magnesium. And maybe I'll tell you all about their birth story one day, because it's a long one and it's a doozy and it's a lot to go into it. But magnesium sucks, and you can't go anywhere or do anything. You have to be hooked up to everything, and they wouldn't let me go down to NICU. They can't bring her down. So the only baby I had for, I don't even know how long it was almost a day, almost a full 24 hours, was Ames. And then a very kind nurse came and said, "We're just gonna," because I had an awful mental breakdown, panic attack. The medicine was all messing me up. All sorts of things were happening. And a nurse came and said, "We're just gonna take you to see your baby." And so I got to go see my baby. And she was beautiful, and she beautiful? I don't so they told me that it was pretty normal for twins to be pretty smushed, and she was. Her head was kind of smushed and all sorts of things. She wasn't like connected to anything, as far as like she didn't have even a breathing tube or anything. She was doing fantastic. She did have wires on her to monitor her oxygen level and her heart rate and things like that, but other than that, she just had to be in the incubator to regulate her temperature and all those things. And she, again, maybe I'll share that whole experience in another video, but if I did, this would be an hour long, and I'm sure this is already forever long. And she was in there until we left. I don't even remember what day we left. Me, Kyle, and Ames got to go home one evening, and the very next day at 11:30 I went and picked up Quinn. So it wasn't even a full 24 hours before Quinn also got to come home with us, which was such a blessing, because there are babies who stay for weeks and months, and I don't know how you guys do it. Those moms with NICU babies, I don't know, because my heart was shattered not having her with us. So I'm really glad that she came home so quickly, and she is healthy and beautiful. They both are. They are thriving for sure. So Quinn was born at 4 pounds 16 ounces, and Ames was 5 pounds 3 ounces, 2 ounces, something like that. I'm a terrible mother when it comes to that kind of stuff. They were small, they were tiny. So that happened in April, and as you can imagine, having premature twin babies was exhausting. They were up every 2.5 hours like clockwork, and if they weren't, we had to wake them up. They took forever to eat their bottles, and I pumped for them. I pumped exclusively for 3.5 months, and I pumped as much as I could for 6 months of their lives before going, I'm done, I quit. That in itself, pumping was, again, hard. Pumping was emotionally, physically exhausting, on top of having to wake up, because I was waking up every 2.5 hours for them, but I'd have to wake up 30 minutes early so that I could pump to give them the milk that they would need in the 2.5 hour spans. So I was only getting about an hour and a half between, because also, again, they would eat forever. So I'd pump for 30 minutes, 20-ish minutes, and then wake them up, feed them. But that would take another 30 minutes, plus put them back to bed. And so, as you can see, the cycle continued. And they did that consistently for probably 3 months. And then they were at a good enough weight that we felt comfortable letting them sleep as long as they wanted before waking up. And then they went to about 2 to 3 times waking up in the middle of the night, which was felt at the time amazing. And pumping was something that I wish I could go. I don't wish I could go back and tell myself not to do it, because I wouldn't have listened to me. I know me, and I wanted it to give it my best effort, and I believe that I did that plus some. I probably should have stopped way earlier, because my mental health, I had prenatal depression, and afterwards I felt amazing because my body didn't feel like it was disintegrating. Hold on, it sounds like someone's at the door. There was someone at the door. They left. My body didn't feel like it was disintegrating. So then I pushed myself because I felt better that way, and I broke myself mentally even more than I was before. So although I don't know that I had postpartum depression truly, I put too much on me, and I blamed me for a lot of things that I shouldn't have. I wanted to give my babies the best, as all moms do, and I just took it too far, and I probably should have quit sooner. But that's not who I am. I will push myself into a ditch trying to do what I think I need to do just because. And it's an awful trait that I have, but it's what I do. So they were 6 months old in, I don't know, April, May, June, July, August, September, October. feel like I haven't been pumping in like a million years. It's only December right now. I stopped pumping in October, and things got easier in a lot of ways. I had that stress off of me after I kind of mourned the idea that I wasn't going to do it anymore, and all of the guilt and whatever else that I was putting on my own shoulders. After I got through that, things got a lot easier and a lot better. Babies, still to this day, waking up a lot. Each one wakes up 2-ish times a night, and usually not at the same time. So still not a lot of sleep going on, but we're getting there, and it's getting better, and every day is better. Ames has actually slept through the night a couple times. And right now we all have a cold, so that's why they're not that's why they're waking up so much. But yeah, this year's just been hard. The holidays are always hard for me. I have a lot of anxiety and emotional baggage around this time of year that's just really hard for me. So I'm getting it through it. And 2023 is going to be, I don't want to say a much better year, because like I said, it wasn't terrible, it was just hard. But 2023 is going to be different, and it's going to look different, and I'm going to make it look different no matter what. And I'm going to make a whole video about my new year and why and how and what I'm going to do to make that better. But yeah, 2022 was just really hard, and a lot of it was hard because we had twins, and having twins is hard. It doesn't mean that I don't love them or want them or wish they weren't here. I hate when there's this stigma around parents who say that something's hard and they're like, oh, you shouldn't have had them then. That's so annoying to me. Parenthood is hard. Twins are definitely hard. And it's okay. It's okay that it's hard. It doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's hard. But 2023 is going to look different. It's going to be different. It's going to be full of amazing times. And I hope that you stick around for that. So I'll see you in the next one, guys. Bye.